Unsettlement of the Armenian-Azerbaijan-Karabakh conflict, position of Azerbaijan Republic. Unsettlement of the Armenian-Azerbaijan-Karabakh conflict, position of Azerbaijan Republic. The realization of the Russian Empire's policy of creating an Armenian state in the territory of Azerbaijan began in the beginning of the 19th century. The history of ungrounded territorial claims of Armenia against Azerbaijan begins as well from the time. The policy was implemented during the First World War. In 1918, the first Armenian state was created in western Azerbaijan lands and the South Caucasus. The Azerbaijan People's Republic conceded Yerevan City, one of the cultural centers of Azerbaijan, to the Armenians with a special order dated on May 20, 1980 for them to have a political center. This was a friendly step taken for the creation of peace and welfare in the South Caucasus. However, despite this, the Armenians continued impudently their territorial claims against Azerbaijan during the rule of the Azerbaijan People's Republic and the years of the Soviet power. Armenians receiving all kinds of support from Moscow during this period were constantly expanding the territory of the Armenian state by annexing Azerbaijan land. They achieved the clearance of Western Azerbaijan from Azerbaijanis, local and absolute majority of the population from their ancestral lands through genocide and forced deportations, and thus made Armenia a mono-ethnic country. In the last period, 1988-1991, of the Soviet power, 1920-1991, these claims carried a military, political, and an openly aggressive character. This time, the Armenians took the purse of creating a second Armenian state in the South Caucasus, again in Azerbaijan territory. The Soviet state didn't provide a fair assessment of Armenia's territorial claims against Azerbaijan and the separatist terrorist activity of Armenians of GARABAGH Autonomous Oblast, and they didn't reveal the criminal actions of Armenian separatists and terrorists. On the contrary, the decisions that were based on double standards, contradicting the problem's essence and not providing a fair settlement were adopted regarding this issue. The decisions of the Soviet Union Communist Party Central Committee and SSR Council of Ministers dated on March 24, 1988, of the SSR Supreme Soviet Presidium dated on July 20, etc. were just such decisions. Precisely because of this, the problems not solved within the USSR. GARABAGH, as well as the events taking place around it, finally became one of the factors leading to the collapse of USSR. Thus, the settlement of that problem passed to the independent Azerbaijan state that inherited a heavy legacy of the Soviet state. However, at that time, a new geopolitical condition appeared in the world politics after the collapse of the USSR. Azerbaijan and Armenia began to become members of authoritative international organizations. Both republics were accepted to the membership of the Conference for Security Cooperation Europe since January 30-31 in 1992 and to UN on March 2. Because of this, the settlement of the problem of GARABAGH, once a monopoly of the Soviet state, began to acquire an international character. On March 24, 1992, the extraordinary meeting of CSCE, Council of Ministers, created the Minsk Group to monitor the conflict. Since March 1992, CSCE and UN have been operating together for the settlement of the problem. Armenian armed forces invaded Lachen and Shusha in May 1982, thus complicating the Minsk Group's activity. The same situation arose as well with the occupation of Kalbajor in March 1993. After this, the UN adopted Resolution 822. The Minsk Group failed to take sufficient measure for the realization of that resolution. Consequently, Aghdari has also invaded. CSCE's role reduced even more, but UN adopted the 3 resolutions, one after another. The state of CSCE kept on until the Budapest summit. It should be noted that the negotiations concerning the settlement of the Armenian-Azerbaijan-Karabakh conflict were conducted behind closed doors in accordance with international practice and the press suffice with brief information. Only some serious liquidations at a meeting of the Azerbaijani Parliament Majlis dedicated to the discussion of the peaceful settlement process of Armenia and Azerbaijan. The Karabakh conflict dated on February 23, 2001 cleared the issue somewhat. He said in a speech at the meeting of Azerbaijan Parliament that Asghar Minsker was created in 1992 and the United Nations Organization charged the OSCE with this issue. OSCE created the Minsk Group and the Minsk Conference. The Minsk Group includes 12 states. Finally, in 1994, we changed the situation at the OSCE Budapest Summit. By that time, we made it fit little into the law. In December 1994, in the Budapest, the first determined issue of the chairmanship of the Minsk Group in the second decision was adopted there for the first time to create peaceful forces of OSCE, and if an agreement is reached, these peaceful forces of OSCE enter here to our region instead of in other countries. We intended that the peaceful forces will be representatives of different states not having an interest in this region. It was a very important decision that we could achieve this. Due to Heydar Aliyev's diplomatic resolve, significant progress was achieved as well as the Lisbon summit held in December 1996. As noted in the February meeting of Milli Majlis in 2001, Azerbaijan's position was acknowledged and supported by 53 states of the world, with the exception of Armenia during the Lisbon summit. The creation of the Minsk Group on a new format following the Lisbon summit brought a certain revival to its activity, though temporarily. This was reflected in the submission of suggestions for the settlement of the Armenia-Azerbaijan Karabagh conflict. The first document, titled All-Round Agreement on the Elimination of the Karabagh Conflict, was presented to the sides on June 11, 1997. That document is mostly known as a packet solution and consists of two agreements united in one packet. The first agreement is dedicated to the cessation of the armed conflict, the second to termination of the status of Karabagh. Since the Armenian side protested against the document, the second document, titled On Cessation of the Karabagh Armed Conflict, was suggested on September 19, 1997. This document intended a stage-by-stage settlement of the conflict. The stage-by-stage settlement plan was considered more admissible for Azerbaijan than the two other suggestions. Co-chairman of the Minsk Group, based on an objection by the Armenian side, made a change to stage-by-stage settlement plan on December 2 and tried to acknowledge Karabagh as a party to the conflict. In regard to this, Azerbaijan stated that it does not accept that version and the negotiations can be started based on the project dated on September 19 only. In November 1998, a third suggestion was put forward concerning the settlement of the conflict. This suggestion is known as common state. That suggestion was not accepted for in essence. It was aimed at turning Karabagh into an independent state, and therefore it contradicted Azerbaijan's interests. After that, the co-chairman of the OSCE Minsk Group did not submit any suggestion. At the same time, since April 1999, direct dialogues of the presidents of both republics for the settlement of the Armenia-Azerbaijan Karabagh conflict began to be organized. Heydar Aliyev summed up the issue concerning the Minsk Group suggestions and direct dialogue, saying, "Of all these negotiations conducted and the suggestions made by the Minsk Group, it's clear to me that they want to solve the issue either by granting the Karabagh status similar to independence or granting full independence. This what appears from all the suggestions of the Minsk Group, nothing else. We are not agreed with this and cannot do this." At the position of the Azerbaijan president, it was expressed as follows. Azerbaijan president is taking a constructive position. All the negotiations taking place so far and supported the peaceful settlement of the problem instead of in other ways. In addition, it stated that it agrees to provide Armenians of Karabagh with the high status practiced and existing in the world by mutual concessions within the framework of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan. It should be noted that the settlement of the Karabagh problem is being allocated and extensive place in the scientific and socio-political view of Azerbaijan. Ilham Aliyev, who decisively won the presidential elections held in October 15 to 2003 and was elected as a new head of Azerbaijan Republic by the will of Azerbaijani people, started that he is going to continue the religious policy with both in the settlement of the Karabagh conflict and all of the other fields. Said at the inauguration ceremony taking place in October 31, 2003, the Armenian-Azerbaijan Karabagh conflict is the hardest problem for our country. We have been living in an armistice condition for many years. Unfortunately, the activity of the OSCE Minsk group directly engaged on this issue does not yet yield any results. We still don't lose our hopes. We still hope that the co-chairman will deal with this issue in a more serious and responsible way. This issue must be settled. This problem can be solved only based on several principles in the international law standards. Azerbaijan territories must be released from invasion. 1 million refugees and internally displaced persons must return to their relative lands. Territorial integrity of our country must be restored. Azerbaijan will never reconcile with this situation with the invasion of our land. Everybody should know that we are supporters of peace, that we don't want war to break out again. We do want this issue to be solved peacefully. But despite this, our patience is not endless. Azerbaijan will release its own territories at whatever costs. After Ilham Aliyev began his activity as president, he began to consecutively realize all of the provisions of the program of his power, including the settlement of the Karabagh problem. In addition to the continuance of negotiations for Armenia, the activity in the field of work with international organizations was expanded even more. The Karabagh issue was put before the UN General Assembly. Ilham Aliyev's efficient activity that started at head of the Azerbaijani Parliament's delegation to the European Council successfully continues as well during his presidency. The speech of the Azerbaijan president on April 29, 2004 in Strasbourg was met with great interest and attention. All of this played an important role in that the European Council recognized Armenia as an invasive state and Karabagh as a separatist region in January 2005. On January 28, the beginning of activity of OSCE fact investigating mission aimed at studying the illegal settlement of Armenians in the occupied territory of Azerbaijan. Karabagh is also a significant success for Azerbaijan diplomacy. The Karabagh issue takes an important place as well in international relations and interstate contact by the Azerbaijan Republic. Not accidentally, the USA has repeatedly stated that it acknowledges the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. These and other irrefutable facts, which are the result of the Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev's intense activity as well as the successes achieved, prove that a serious change has taken place in the settlement of Armenia-Azerbaijan Karabagh conflict. Azerbaijan's position is supported even more in an international committee, and the day when occupied territories of Azerbaijan were released is close. Karabagh was an integral part of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan has been recognized within its established borders. The territorial integrity of Azerbaijan is inviolable. In addition, the existence of one more Armenian state is possible. The ideas put forward by Armenia expressed ostensibly the population of Karabagh wants self-determination, whereas Armenians have already determined their destiny. They have an independent state, the Republic of Armenia. Second, the Armenian state cannot exist in the world, so the independence of Karabagh is inadmissible. Karabagh is the historical land of Azerbaijan, and it may have a higher degree of autonomy only. Ilham Aliyev.